Hello, and welcome to Humor Me. My name is Susanne Boitano. Tonight, my special guest is Worcester's hardest working comedian and the brains behind Thick Chick Comedy. She's been slaying audiences all over New England, and I am pleased and proud to have on my show Serenity Jones.
Thank you, Suzanne. Hello, Newton. So when you heard my name, Serenity Jones, who was expecting a stripper? Who was expecting a black girl? I know you weren't expecting me. So I'm getting to the age where I'd like to consider myself grown and sexy. And I've noticed I've been wearing ponytails a lot lately. And I think that's because I can't afford filler. And it's like a facelift. I've been trying to beat the aging process. And I started going to a gym. I've been taking a fit body boot camp. And I thought that I got a little bout with sciatica. Went to my doctors. They had me doing physical therapy. Physical therapy wasn't working. So then they went and they actually did x-rays on my hips. And I don't have arthritis. I don't have sciatica. I actually have advanced arthritis in my hips. And I feel like I've been lied to my whole entire life because I thought black men blew out backs, not hips. You know, there's a couple things that they like to tell you before surgery. The two things for me was that I know with this voice you can probably guess I like to smoke Newports. They told me I had to quit smoking. I thought it would be easy, but I'm actually just smoking I thought it would be easy where they have banned menthol cigarettes in the state of Massachusetts. But I'm just smoking a Marlboro Reds with the Vicks cough drop. They also told me that I needed to lose weight. And I go by Thick Chick Comedy. I feel like that was a way of owning myself, coming into myself. So I was really upset that I had to lose weight. But then my doctor, he doubled down and he told me, but you have a really beautiful face. And then I sat there for a moment and I said the most inappropriate thing I could come up with. And if that's something you want to know what I said, you're going to have to come to a show. I decided to work on getting healthy. The first thing I did was go get a sponsor. She's in a wheelchair. I can't get past the first step. You know you're a thick chick when the jeans you're wearing have holes in them that you didn't pay for. The thighs that rub together. You know you're a thick chick when you take a bite of pizza and you burn the roof of your mouth, but you take another bite. You know you're a thick chick if you get to the end of the bag of chips and then you take this bag of chips and you pour them all into your mouth. You know you're a thick chick if you're out delivering Uber Eats, stealing French fries. Newton, you can find me on all streaming platforms, Thick Chick Comedy. My name's Serenity Jones. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Serenity. That was great.
Thank you, Susan.
So I wanted to find out what started you in comedy. What was your inspiration to start to do comedy?
So it's actually something I've always wanted to do, from a young age. And friends of mine actually dared me into trying. But it's kind of ironic that in an elementary yearbook that it says what do you want to be when you grow up? And I actually put a comedian down there.
Oh, you did?
Believe it or not, yes. I feel like, humor and comedy has been a big part of my life. I just didn't realize that I'd be able to do something with it as far as telling jokes.
What was your first experience on the stage?
I had drank too much. I drank too much because I was nervous. And, I started off strong and then it just poof. Yeah, I don't even think you can call it comedy. It was more ranting. I didn't understand the concept of a joke, how to set it up, the premise, the punchline.
But you went back the next day?
I did continue to go back. I don't drink anymore at the open mics. I don't feel like I need to anymore. But yeah, no, I keep going back. It really gives me something. I feel like I've always used comedy to protect me, from maybe some. I just actually realized this is comedy for me has always been something that can keep me safe, and also dealing with trauma. if you have comedy, kind of deflects some of it. And I didn't realize like how much I use comedy to deflect from stuff that like bothers me until I had recently lost somebody in my life, and like I was trying to like remember memories, and I couldn't remember some things, like things that I should know, right? Like things like I should remember. So, but I feel like I've learned to have this voice, and it allows me to deal with like my trauma in a lot healthier way now that I'm older, and then I can write jokes about it, I can make fun of it, and I can take the power back.
So comedy's been a therapy for you.
Absolutely. And you know, that's kind of odd because most people that do comedy, I would not say that they are mentally well. However, I feel like it gives me a great outlet, and it allows me to process things like on my terms. And if there's something that disturbs me or upsets my peace, I get to take the power back by writing jokes over it.
Interesting. What is the process? Do you just come up with things? Do you sit and write specifically? How do you work the comedy?
Real life scenarios.
Real life scenarios.
Real life scenarios. Nobody can say that they stole them. Like there's a parallel thinking where somebody can come up with a joke that's very similar to yours.
Right.
But if it's your story,
They can't.
and something that happened to you that you've lived through, and I like to think like I'm a storyteller.
Right. Interesting. What made you decide to really brand yourself, and how does that process enable you to get out and do more things?
Branding myself was probably the best thing I could have done, and I started it off early, probably before I was even funny, before I even should have had a brand. But it's a very male-dominated industry, and women need to be a little bit different, have their own style in order to have the same opportunities. So it was a way for me to give myself more stage time. And people, I don't know, they love it. They love the thick chick comedy. They just love it.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's worked great. Like, people are like, who came up with that? I was like, yeah, me. I'm owning my BBW.
Right? People can't accuse you. They can't make fun of you if you've already crossed that line.
Right. Exactly. I really felt like through thick chick comedy, I like really found like myself. It's given me like better coping skills. I've learned to go about things differently, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you approach it really as a business, for the
As
most
a
part.
business, but it definitely like helps me with my own baggage and my own stuff. But yeah, I think that in order to be successful, it's so much more than just being funny.
Yeah.
Anyone that's out there that's thinking of trying comedy, you need to have a fan base, you need to have a following, and you also need to be able to market yourself, because you can be the funniest person if nobody knows you're there.
Right. Yes, exactly. What, being a woman in comedy, what has been some of the drawbacks to that?
Some of the drawbacks, well, you have to deal with some men. Some of them can be inappropriate at times. Sometimes I feel like I've had to work twice as hard to be taken as seriously. I'm not necessarily in any cliques, so I've really paved my own way, which I prefer it that way because, you know what, I actually get to make some income. I get to pay my other comedians, and I'm the one calling the shots. I've learned a lot through trial and error, and not everything ran smooth in the beginning.
Yeah. Would you say you'd have to have a thick skin to be in this
Oh my
business?
gosh, yes, because comedians are brutal with one another. Brutal, and the more that you build your repertoire and your brand and your name up, the more they kind of come for you. So yeah, you absolutely have to have a thick skin. And you know, some of the stuff that I would go through, like early in my days, I used to let bullying bother me, but now I just kind of, you know, I've written stuff about things that they had bullied me about. So I've then again taken the power back.
Yeah, exactly. Well, tell us about that, about the difficulties you've had with shaming from other comedians, and how you have sort of flipped the script on that.
Well, so some of my past is that I haven't always been this put together woman that is sitting before you.
Really?
I've had some struggles in my life. You know, I've been incarcerated in MCI Framingham, and I have arrests out there, and you know, my arrests were Googled and printed out and shared to the radio station I was at, to the venues that I worked with, and to my sponsor. I actually lost a sponsorship with a dispensary because of comedians that never even knew that they existed until they just started to, come after me. And, what did you call it you called it slut shaming? Yes. I made a really bad decision one day, really bad decision. And I ended up getting arrested, and I was shamed for a bad decision. So, clearly there was some substance abuse in there. And if you read any of my article or any of my arrests, you would know, at first glance, that girl suffered from some substance abuse at some point in her life. So I was bullied on that. It was a lot. It was a lot. But, now that I've written sets about it and I talk about it freely and openly, I just let people know. But sex on the beach, it's not just a drink for me. It's also a felony. No, it's not.
And you did a lecture at a college, right?
I did. Quinsigamond College invited me down to talk about incarceration and re-entry, and kind of felt like a scared straight. But I think I was able to relate to them through humor. And I definitely, it was my sense of humor and my personality is the reason why that they had reached out to me to come in and talk to teenagers or college students.
That's good. Could you have ever imagined when you started out that that would be the trajectory where you'd be an example, a good example?
No, when I had to be at the probation office 3 times a week, and I was, getting clean urine from people at one point to try to stay out of jail. No, I never would have thought that I would be doing the things I'd be doing. That comedy has taken me so many places. It really has built up my confidence. Yeah.
That's great. So when you're putting together shows, what makes a good show? You've seen tons of shows and you've produced tons of shows. What should people expect in a good comedy show? What do you like to see and what do you do?
I like to have some organization. I like to have everything prepped, break down on tables. In the perfect world, everybody shows up early. The show starts right at time. I run smaller shows. That way I allow people to actually do some time. I feel like sometimes when you get on these shows and there's a bunch of comedians on them, you're not going to get the best show necessarily, because I don't feel like the comedians have enough time to dig into their set and really start to tell their jokes, tell their story.
You mean like when a showcase where you have 15 comedians, sort of a thing?
Yes, 15. I mean, if there's 15 comedians on it, that tells me that they're probably not the strongest comedians, and that they probably only have about 5 or 10 minutes. So I like to give a little bit more, so somebody that maybe doesn't usually get to do as much time, they have some flexibility on my show. The only thing I ask is for the comedians that I hire that if you are not hitting and the audience is not responding to you, to just step down and pass the mic. Because if you stay up there longer and you continue to lose the audience, you make it so much harder for the person coming up after you.
Oh.
And we know.
Yeah.
We know when people aren't feeling it. We know.
So that's good. You say just bow out, there'll be another night.
Right.
Don't stink it up for the next person.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
What's more difficult, dealing with the comedians or dealing with the audience or the management, just given all things being equal?
Definitely the comedians.
Yeah?
Definitely.
Any horror stories? You don't have to name names, but what have you seen?
I mean, of course I've seen horror stories. Of course I have. So there was a comedian and we were doing a show in Boston. And it was a tough room. He was being heckled really hard. And I think that, there's a difference. Sometimes there's audience, and, if you don't start that show on time, they're just having an extra drink or two.
Yeah.
So you don't know what you're going to end up with. Most people, so if you start your show on time, you're less likely to get hecklers because they'll have, that one less drink in them.
Oh, good point.
But, yeah, he had a really hard time. And then he ended up, calling the woman in the audience a pretty bad name, on stage with a microphone. He left, the whole energy of the room shifted. And then like I had to go up right after him.
How do you get the audience back? What is your silver bullet for?
I didn't do so hot that night either because they were all riled up because of what he did.
So it tanked
and
the
it
show in a
wasn't-
way a bit.
The headliner got it back. This is a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I think that the host could have done a better job at bringing the audience back, getting them to settle down. But at that point, like the ladies were just, they wanted to be in it. And I think that like there's certain areas, like I feel like the South Shore is like that. You have to be quick on your feet and you have to keep these people entertained because if they could start going off in left field, they're going to interject with you.
What are the hazards of doing crowd work? Sometimes it's great, but then it can turn on you too. How much of your act, how do you figure out if you're going to do crowd work and how much and to whom?
You have to have two setups for crowd work. Obviously, you're trying to set something up to go in your favor, but you never know because the crowd can really say anything, right?
For sure.
I had made a Trump joke and like this couple that I had been joking with prior to the show, I'm thinking we're getting along great, like this is super.
Right.
And then I just made a joke about how I've always wanted a sugar daddy during the pandemic and how I went from like a sugar daddy to an allowance to cut off. And you know, she was feeling that she was a hardcore Trumper and like she just interjected and like would not let me move on. And I had actually on that particular show invested in hiring a videographer, paid a few $100s because I wanted a professional set, filmed, recorded, so that way I could send them out, and it just turned into
and then
a
you got
fiasco.
this is what you got. Oh my gosh! And you paid
A
for it.
fiasco, yes.
What a nightmare.
Yes.
That reminds me, during the pandemic, all the shows shut down. People didn't know what to do, but you actually pivoted and made it work. Talk about
Best
that.
thing that ever happened to me, parking lot comedy. During that pandemic, was really like I was starting to like fall in love with comedy. You know, my parents, I don't think they hugged me enough as a child. So the attention, and I was kind of just starting to do shows. I don't know if I had came up with my own brand at that point or not, but all the comedians wanted to stay in, and I was like, nope, I want to be out there. And because they were so scared of the virus, they didn't go out. They stayed in, locked in their basements and locked in their houses. And that's really when I learned how to handle a crowd. I got a ton of material from being out doing that. Like we were doing private shows. I mean, I never caught COVID either. I never caught COVID. I have had more COVID tests than pregnancy tests. But yeah, I always tried to be really responsible because I didn't want anyone, you know, to get sick. But I would be on shows and then the phones would start ringing and I never ever caught it. Never.
That's funny. So it's like you got exposure, but you didn't get exposed.
Exactly.
As it were.
Exactly.
Interesting.
I was called a murderer and everything else.
Delightful.
Yes, just like the fact that I wasn't scared and I wanted to go out. And otherwise, if I was locked in my house, I would be miserable too. I mean.
Yeah, and you brought comedy to people at a time
I made
when
other
they
people laugh
really
during a
needed
difficult
it.
time. And like, I'm glad COVID-19's over.
Sure. You do a lot of charity work. People don't know it, but talk about that and what that
I
means to
do.
you.
That's actually what I am most proud of is that I've been able to help Why Me Sherry's House, which works with families with children with cancer. I was able to provide Christmas gifts. I think we raised about $5,000
that's great.
last Christmas, which was amazing. I have worked with the youth baseball team. A lot of these kids were inner city Worcester kids. They've never even left the city of Worcester. I helped raise money to send them out to New York City to go do a tournament out there. Yeah, I've done a ton of giving back. Raised money for somebody that was doing a like walkathon. I think we raised $3,000 at a show for that.
That's
But
great.
yeah, knowing that I can do something that I love, comedy, and that I can raise money and help and give back, it's important to me to give back because I know, like, I feel like comedy's done so much for me and it's opened so many doors for me and that I'm grateful for where I'm at. And, you know, I know that in my past, I've certainly taken more than my share.
So now you're giving back in the best way possible.
I'm like washing the sin away, you know, one fundraiser at a time.
That's funny. Now you had some association with some Worcester sports leagues. Remind me about that.
Yeah, so the Worcester Majors, it's our local basketball team. I would go down, help them with promos, but, love me some basketball players. And then that baseball team, the youth baseball team.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And that's where the name Worcester's Main Squeeze.
That's right. That's right. I'm everybody's girlfriend, everybody's.
Is it hard, if you're a female comedian, is it hard to find boyfriends? Are they put off? Are they interested? Are they skittish? They feel like everything they say is going to turn into a bit?
Probably that. I don't know. I feel like I'm a damaged person. So, yeah, I haven't had any luck in the boyfriend, but if there's anybody in Newton that is interested in me, I'm single. I don't have any kids.
She's a real catch.
Right. Exactly. We'll always have fun. We'll always laugh. I'm available, have a car. So, send me a message.
Tells you were in the head of the Thanksgiving, St. Patrick's Day parade. That must have been an incredible event.
Yes. This will be my third year doing a float. I'm trying to come up with the theme, but being an Irish girl, I love St. Patrick's Day parade. I can at least remember it now, right? I can remember it, but we float down on Park Ave, and it's just to see the people, they're all excited. They're all huddling together because it's always really, really cold.
Exactly.
But it really feels warm and welcoming to be a part of the community. I've also fundraised for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We've hosted events to raise money because that is an independently put together parade. It's not put together by the city. It's just local Irish folk that love the holiday, love corned beef and beer.
Excellent, and just want to keep it going.
That's right.
For
That's
that
right.
sense of community and everything.
right.
Is there something, you were born in Newton, correct?
Actually, yes. So both of my parents are from this area.
Interesting. So what is it about, you've been in Worcester for a while, how would you describe Worcester, and what is it that makes it a home for you and that you feel like this is the place I want to give to and be a part of?
I think that Worcester has a great community. I've met so many wonderful people that are kind, supportive, that are thoughtful of one another. I think that sometimes being in a city, you get the flack because, we do have some violence in the city, but I mean, that's not necessarily what I have experienced. I love that it's so diverse. There's always something to do, great restaurants, history, and we're on up and rise. I'm not feeling the rents. The rents lately have been, not my fave, but
Yeah.
there's a lot going on, and I feel like it's only going to get better.
Interesting. What advice would you give to someone starting out in comedy? What have you learned? What would be things you're like, boy, if I had only known.
Valium. No. Keep your mouth quiet. Don't get involved in the drama or the gossip. Pay attention to how people move. But most importantly, just write jokes and get up and tell your jokes. And you don't necessarily have to do that at an open mic. I waitressed for a lot of years, and I would try my jokes out at the table. If I could ever have slid them in to see how people would react.
That's hilarious. Roseanne did that too, and that's how people were like, you should be an actor, you should be a comedian.
I've been one my whole life.
Right?
Yes.
Now you get paid for it. That's great.
Yes.
So basically, just stay in your own lane. Don't get involved with the gossip, and just keep working hard.
Right.
Interesting.
And your time will come. It takes a long time. I think that the average, so I don't really book comedians that are new. I'm looking for people with 5 years experience because I want people to be able to handle that stage. The people that are in the audience, in case you got a heckler, you can kind of maneuver your way through.
Yeah.
And I think that the only way you're going to get there is just keep getting on that stage, just keep writing, keep telling those same jokes, because you're going to figure out how to deliver them a little bit better each time.
Absolutely. Now you've done some shows with some bigger names. You want to mention some of the people that you've worked with?
So I work with Joselito, the puppet, Spanish puppet, actually from Boston. He's big in New York and in the Latino community. And I've also picked up private bookings through working with him.
Ah.
I've worked with some of the Def Jam comedy artists, Hamburger, and Honest John. And then I was just with Stephen Gibbs, and he's been on a ton of stuff. HBO's Curb Your Enthusiasm, Netflix
Excellent.
Unbelievable series, Laugh Mobs, Laugh Tracks, MTV. This guy has done a ton of stuff. And he's actually back up here in February. We're doing my annual veterans show.
Oh, excellent.
Where I help and I give back to the veterans. My father was a Navy veteran, and this will be my 3rd year in a row hosting that event for him, and this is the big headliner that's coming in.
That's excellent. What can we expect from Thick Chick Comedy and from Serenity Jones in the future? Where are we going with the empire?
We are going to start spreading our branches out. You're going to see me on the South Shore. I'm going to be at Bobby's Place in Taunton. And I'm looking to work with any other new venues. So if there's any local businesses out here that might be interested in hosting a comedy night, they could always reach out to Thick Chick Comedy on all social media. I'd be happy to come down, meet with you, and figure out a good time to set up an event, comedy night, and we'll have the whole Newton laughing out large with us.
Excellent. So you're going to conquer the South Shore.
So all over. I want to be all over. I want, before I leave, I need to take over Massachusetts, right?
Absolutely.
Before I go to like Vegas or New York or Texas now, right?
Right. What would be the big plan, like your dream, if you dared to dream? Do you see yourself sitcom, writing a book, comedy school? What would be sort of the apex of your career?
So my short-term goal that I feel is obtainable is to do a show at Mechanics Hall in Worcester. It seats 1,300. It's actually bigger than the Wilbur.
Oh, interesting.
And I've already been prospecting out, talking to different bigger artists. And I know that I'm going to hear a bunch of no's before I hear that yes. But when I get that yes, oh, is it going to be sweet? It's going to be sweet. But I think I'd like to hit some bigger stages, like the Apollo is a big one for me. Joe Rogan's Comedy Club,
Oh, sure.
To be in there.
He's a Newton native, actually.
Right.
From Laurel Mills.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, people love Massachusetts. We're a little bit different. We're nitty. We're gritty.
Right.
We're a little abrupt, and they just love our accent. So.
Tremendous. All right.
But for a long-term goal, I mean, I'm open to anything. I haven't gotten that far, but yeah, something in comedy.
Excellent. Well, you've heard it here from Serenity Jones, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And that was another edition of Humor Me.